Decrease the cooldown of lords if you bind is removed. Okay, so even lower cooldown, sure. Wait, why the f does Grogen get another buff?
Seiishizo, I'll tell you why Grogen gets another buff is because they saw that video where you spent $700 and got 0 to nothing but just an LD force. So congrats, dude. You and I, we got that unit. Let's just enjoy it. Hey guys, it's Childish. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to do a super fast review of some of the units that I want to touch on when it comes to the Monster Balance Fest, because obviously this thing has been out for 24 hours. And as you guys know, when it comes to Monster Balance Pass, I never can get that video out right away due to when it pops out here. But I do want to just share my humble opinion, because this balance patch just kind of threw me through the loop here. So first thing we got to talk about, obviously I already mentioned it in the intro, Dark Dragon. What the heck is going on, right? I don't know, right? I don't know. But I will say this, so just to go back a little bit for all of you guys that are super old school, shouts out to YDCB one time. You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of that content that he used to make, I want to say about 7 or 8 years ago, where he literally created that anime that he would put at the intro of the videos, dub it, and he would have I'm guessing it was like a Korean anime or something like that, and he would have little subtext, English text, and essentially, make it, about, come to his headquarters and the things that he did, because there was a couple of units back in the day that were similar to Dark Dragon that got buffed, and we don't know, and they, I remember watching one of them where, they buffed it just because it's, the CEO's, only LD5, whatever like that, but anyways, guys, obviously that as you guys know, like everybody said, that buffs makes absolutely no sense, so it is what it is. We just got to go with the flow. One of the things that I wanted to touch base on, I actually did want to touch base on the Fire Chimera collapse. Counterattack damage is going up from 75% to 100%. I already felt like the damage was really good, but the improvement on here is going to be obviously beneficial. The skill is scaling on max HP, and I do find it valuable in Siege and Guild Wars, and then in certain situations when it comes to RTA, if you wanted to mess around with it. Now, moving on, I do want to scroll all the way down again to, I think I want to talk about the water Hwoarang. Now, this is one of those things where I was excited, but I'm not excited because I don't know how to feel about this. So this particular unit, super unique ability, right? His skill 3 has that ability to essentially reduce the attack bar by 0 and then increase it by the amount that you get, right? So when we think about something like this that gain value and can cycle through his skills, obviously if you're looking to utilize this is going to be something that you're probably going to bust up maybe with a turn 1 setup or something like that. That's what I'm thinking, but correct me if I'm wrong. And of course they set it up in such a fashion that even if somebody has the immunity, it's not going to matter because they're going to be able to increase it either way. That being said, though, I still don't think it's going to be as competitive as we would like to be, unless you're super OP and have crazy swift units, swift runes, because the base speed is 104 and there's a lot of phenomenal units out there that are have amazing kits that are pushing 115 and 119 speed, right? So again, you guys let me know in the chat, where do you think this is going to fit? I mean, again, if you're talking about early to mid game players with, just kind of intermediate runes, maybe you can get away with it if the opponent's not super fast or something like that. Maybe you can have some fun, in Guild Wars Siege, where you don't have to really, super rely on even if you don't get the first turn, you have to deal with the AI and stuff like that. Maybe you can get around it. I don't know, but I mean, I was generally excited because again, a unit like this being able to cycle any kind of unit that can cycle into multiple skills, I'm a big fan of it, right? So yeah, I'm looking to get your guys' opinion on this one. Yeah, but anyways, next one up there, definitely got to talk about Wing Gojo, right? A phenomenal unit, to me, a phenomenal unit prior to, has that crazy defense scaling skills, has that provokes, and then has the ability to get some additional there if you have defense lower in here. Now they take away the invulnerability provided in the defense, and again, when it is a defense scaling unit, then why not go for the defense here? Will it make or break the game? Definitely not, but it is nice to have a unit that's essentially like a bruiser that has a way to buff up his own skills and provide a little bit extra value. I still feel like, even though we have had an improvement over the last few years when it comes to some defense scaling unit, I still feel like we are it's kind of like the game is kind of lackluster when it comes to really good, strong defense scaling bruisers that can really compete out there with some of the HP scaling. Comparatively from defense scaling to HP scaling bruisers, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like we got way more HP scaling than we do defense scaling. And, obviously when it comes to like stuff like RTA, having the ability for the HP to drop, attack to go, still having the high defense that doesn't get, changed or whatnot, I still feel like it could be valuable here, but you guys will have to correct me in the chat as always here. So, what else is to mention? I mean, there's nothing really else to say that hasn't already been said by Dark Zenny. Obviously a pretty strong, update to be saying, but again, this is for the 0.0002% of people that got it. Congrats. And again, I don't know why I'm like getting salty about it, because I'm part of the 0.002% that got this. Grogen's like 37 the buff here, so again, I'm not going to be too salty about that. I'm happy for anybody that does have that change here. Now, the next one that I want to talk about is the Indras here. The fire, the wind, the light. This change from Wind Bolt, I think this is actually a phenomenal change, right? And some of the things that, we don't really think about when it comes to this one is that the value of the passive, when it's in that threat state, right? When it's in that threat state, it does some additional effects. And now having the ability to go from 1 time to 2 times makes it even that much more stronger, depending on what it provides here. Obviously, all of them are going to get quite a bit of a benefit, but for the people out there that can't have the light Indra, I think the fire Indra now is just going to be a disgusting unit with so many things in this kit. I mean, I feel like I was seeing a lot of Indras in the meta, and they were really using that, utilizing them well. But I feel like now, I mean, there's even going to be more reason to dust off the cobwebs on the Indras here, especially the ones that just got recently buffed, especially fire Indra, if you haven't had a chance to do it. Okay. Next one up here. Yeah, I gotta talk about the Dracon Warrior. I don't know what's going on with this one. The absorption reduction 5%. I mean, I feel like 5% in general, when it comes to making changes that is only like 5%, I feel like that's, unless we're talking about Ragdoll or something like that, I feel like that's just an absolute waste. It's not, that's an insignificant nerf or buff or whatever the case may be. I was taking a look at the kits on the Dracon Warriors. I'm like, why in the world would they do this? It really doesn't make any sense. I was thinking to myself, maybe it's the water one. Is the water one that has a skill 3 that has more like other like manipulation for the attack bar? I think that must be the case here, because again, I was trying to figure out what it is. And yeah. So Solberg does have the decreasing of the attack bar by 30% for that skill 3. So maybe the attack bar reduction plus the absorption on Dragon's Breath, again being able to hit all enemies, so you're going to get yourself a good amount of attack absorption. I don't know, maybe that was too much, and they just had to, like, everybody had to take the hit, the water, wind, and light, because they all have that same skill. Like, maybe it was just because of the water one that they did that. But you guys, again, let me know. I'm always up for debate on that. But I get it in certain situations. The ability to cycle skills due to attack bar absorption and whatnot. I get it sometimes in certain units or whatnot here. The thing that I think about when it talks about like attack bar manipulation and provokes and whatnot, I think about, what is it? The Dark M Bison, right? The Dark M Bison, absolutely disgusting unit. You don't want to get in that chain cycle, so that's what I'm thinking they're trying to worry about here. But I don't know, man. I just feel bad, because I think I honestly think, I mean, honestly, that being said, it's a negligible change. 5% doesn't mean too much. I feel like I still got to do a good job, but why even do that? Unless you guys are just seeing something that I'm not seeing, but it is what it is. So moving on here to the Fire Demon. This is one that I wanted to talk about. Let's take a look at the skill. Flames of Hell attacks continuous damage and then blocks harmful effect removal, right? Now they changed it to the block harmful effect removal first. And then conflicts continuous damage. Now, initially, when I look at this, I was like, why in the world was this just changed early? Because I was thinking that the block harmful effect wasn't a block harmful effect, but it was like a strip. Like, why put dots in before you strip something? But it's not the case. It's actually the anti-cleanse that we've always talked about in previous units, such as Beth or whatnot here. The anti-cleanse and then the continuous damage. Why in the world does this change matter? I have no idea. You guys have to let me know. But at least they did incorporate more continuous damage will be inflicted in proportion to the damage dealt. I'm trying to think about is it Blood yet? The one that I'm thinking about that has a crazy amount of dots that could be placed on, depending on the on the situation, how many harmful effects are down there. So if that's the case, then I'm definitely down for that, because obviously, as you guys know, I use a lot of units out there, in my lineup that that provide value to, like the Tomoe, the Amber, a lot of stuff that I play around with in RTA. So it could be interesting, but I don't know if I'm gonna, switch it out for something that I have. But again, moving on here, I didn't really want to touch base on any of this stuff. I mean, yes, Fire Druid, again, 5%, but I don't know. You guys must be seeing this a lot more in Siege and Guild Wars than I do, but I mean, is this really going to provide a ton of value for the people that got this one built on the damage, setup here? Unless you got another unit coming in with it that has some additional harmful effects before you load up on this one, I don't know. Now, Wind Hacker, I need somebody out there in the world to tell me why in the world is this why would they do that, right? From what I gather from the community, this was a unit that was having little to no usage as it is. And even though it's not having usage as it is, and I feel like Compto doesn't know that, they have the resources to back that up and figure that out. I do see the initial change, which looks like a nerf, but it is a nerf, but there was partially a buff, right? Instead of having the offsets incoming damage that may cause you to die, now you have the offsets to incoming damage for a fatal attack. So what this means to me is that now you can essentially still prevent yourself from death with units that have the multi-hits. And of course, multi-hits is outrageously meta. Everyone utilizes it. And so maybe now that's going to be the case. But even then, like I feel like what they should have done at the very least is going to, keep that fatal attack, because again, that does, counter a lot of certain units out there that are trying to do it. And then just keep the reflection at 100%. I mean, there's no history that I can see, that I've seen from previous talk, that the reflection damage was outrageously too strong and should be nerfed here, whatever the case may be. So again, this is just one of those things that really doesn't make sense to me. It reminds me of the golden days of, not really the golden days, but some of the days back in probably, I think it was like 2019, 2020, where we had a lot of, content creators criticize CompToUs, saying, they'd be like, oh yeah, hey, we've been looking closely as you're using the paint. It's like, really? Like, has it, a lot of people talked about this? We know that there's certain units out there that are going to get more usage than others. For a unit like this that gets like little to no usage, why in the world would you drop the reflection if it isn't something like game breaking, right? So outside of that, I really didn't see anything that stuck out to be good. The reduction on the cooldown here for Fire Agent is great. I mean, I love the Fire Agent. I think it's a phenomenal unit for Guild Wars Siege. I know a couple of people playing around with it when it comes to raiding the rift raids and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a fun unit, and it's going to be good for anybody to use, regardless of where you're at in the game. So, but that's going to be it, guys. I just wanted to kind of give an update, when it comes to some of the things that kind of dropped here. Obviously, a couple of cool things that have been incorporated. Like I said, very excited for the Indra family. I am excited for the Fire Chimera, for those that utilize it in so many situations. A couple of other fun upgrades in the lineup, but ultimately this balance patch was a flop. Regardless of how excited I am to have a stronger Grogen, I can't really sit here and support CompToUs and say that you did a phenomenal job, because it really doesn't make no sense. I would love, like, what we need, and it's never going to happen. I would love, one of the cool things about CompToUs and the crew, when we go to these events, like the World Finals and whatnot, over the years, we've had a chance to speak, with various people in there, whether it was developers, the CEO, and so on and so forth. And they've allowed us to chat with them, kind of go back and forth to getting their opinion on certain things, or us just having an opinion about something, a question about something, and answering it to the best of their ability. I would love to see not only a balance patch, but a response, right? Kind of like one of those like videos that you make when they have like a new update, or I'm trying to think of what I'm thinking about. Is it a new update? Like, you know how sometimes they make a little video with certain developers and whatnot, kind of showcasing the big changes and, you know, specific people that were instrumental in making those changes, you know, their inspiration, their motivation, whatnot. I would love to see a balanced patch put out, and then the developers make a video analyzing the balance patch and saying, this is why we made the change. This is exactly what we saw that says, hey, you know what, this is a little off here, and this one made, because at least at the very least, they can justify the changes that they made. Once again, want to put it clearly here. I understand that while the majority of the mid to late game players out there are heavily focused on PvP, and what we want to see is changes for Siege, Guild War, RTA, etc. You know, obviously when it comes to PvE, we obviously accept the change when they come to us, but realistically, there's so many options when it comes to PvE. We can get around them. We can beat around the bush. We can get around with a lot of other different units on some of the states. But ultimately, we want to push in the competitive spots, and that's where we want to see a lot of the changes out there. So if they had the opportunity to, you know, really justify their reasons so that we can understand, then I would absolutely love to see that. I think that would be really a cool thing here. So, but yeah, guys, that's going to be it for the video. Just want to give an update on that. Let me know what your thoughts are in the chat down below. Okay. Like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you on the next one. Take care.